The Xbox One has had a rocky road this generation. Regardless, it's still got a very solid lineup of upcoming games. In this video, we will be taking a look at the top 10 upcoming Xbox One console exclusives. Let's get right into this with number 10. Number 10, Below. Below is a top-down adventure game where you play as a tiny warrior in the depths of a remote island. You have to survive in whichever way you can. The game is very difficult with combat that is said to be brutal but fair. Death is also permanent. Aesthetically, the game looks very unique. The soundtrack is very eerie and completely goes with the game. Below has potential to be one of the most immersing games. It releases later this year. Number 9, Ashen. Ashen is an open-world survival exploration game set in a sunless world. The game tells the story of a main character seeking a home. Gameplay is similar to many other survival games where you have to cooperate with other players to explore the world and defeat monsters. Ashen is said to have gameplay elements of classic RPGs and games such as DayZ. The game doesn't have an exact release date yet, but hopefully we'll see it later this year. Number 8, Inside. Inside is being developed by Playdead Studios, who released one of the best indie games of all time in Limbo. Now after 6 years, finally we'll see their next game, Inside. Inside tells the story about a young boy as he struggles against evil forces trying to take over the world. Kind of simple in premise, but I would expect anything but simple out of Inside. The game has an extremely dark look and I expect it to be in tone and theme as well. Inside has been in development for a while. Originally scheduled for an early 2015 release, it's currently slated to come this year. Number 7, Cuphead. Cuphead is a run-and-gun platformer. You play as the title character Cuphead and fight through a series of bosses in order to repay a debt to the devil. The game is drawn in the style of 1930s cartoons and it looks absolutely amazing artistically. The game is continuous boss fights. You have infinite lives and you keep weapons between deaths. Each level in the game is accessible through a world map including secret areas, and the game will also feature a 2-player co-op mode. Cuphead is being built like a retro game. It has major emphasis on its core gameplay over its plot. This looks like one of the most unique upcoming games. It releases sometime this year. Number 6, Recore. Recore is an action-adventure game being developed by Concept and Armature Studio. Concept are the guys that are working on Mighty No. 9, which is a game that has suffered many delays. Hopefully that's not the case with Recore. This is a game we still don't know much about. All we've seen is a CG trailer, but that trailer was so interesting. In that trailer, we see a girl in a giant desert accompanied by a robot dog. They are attacked by other robotic enemies, and the girl uses a grappling hook to remove the cores from them. The girl and the dog end up being overwhelmed, and the dog self-destructs, leaving behind his core. The girl picks up the core, finds a robot, and inserts the dog's core into it, and it comes to life, and the two seemingly know each other. Just off the CG trailer, you can kind of piece together the gameplay elements, and it sounds very unique. We'll wait for a final judgment once we see more, but this is one you definitely want to keep your eye on. It's expected to release sometime this year. Number 5, Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is an adventure game being developed by Rare, who were once one of the most respected developers in the industry, crafting some of the best games in the 90s and early 2000s with Banjo-Kazooie and Perfect Dark. Since the acquisition by Microsoft, Rare did begin falling off the map, but now it seems like they're getting back on track with games like Sea of Thieves. It's a pirate-themed adventure game with a gorgeous watercolor, cartoony art style. The little bit we've seen looks amazing from its visuals and premise. The game will also feature multiplayer, but outside of that, we don't know too much more. It's expected to release this year. Number 4, Halo Wars 2. Halo was such a successful license that it was only a matter of time it would get attached onto other genres. When Halo Wars was announced, many didn't know what to make of it. An RTS on a console, you just didn't know how the game was going to turn out. But what we got was a very competent RTS catered for the console controls. The game, while simplistic compared to PC RTSs, it still offered a very complete experience on console. Now comes Halo Wars 2, this time around being developed by Creative Assembly, the guys who worked on Total War. It'll be interesting to see how they refine what made the original good. We still don't know a ton, but considering who's developing it, I expect something really great when Halo Wars 2 releases this fall. Number 3, Crackdown 3. Crackdown is an interesting series, a sandbox third-person shooter. The first game was released back in 2007, and one of the reasons it sold so well was the fact that it was bundled with the Halo 3 beta. But people came to find out that, hey, Crackdown is actually a pretty good game. 2010 brought the sequel, Crackdown 2, which didn't fare as well. Now 6 years later, we've got Crackdown 3. One of the most notable elements of the game is the mass scale destruction that enables every little bit of the game to be destroyed. Now keep in mind this destruction is reliant on Microsoft Azure, so it will only be available in the online multiplayer modes. Campaign will only have limited destruction. Crackdown 3 looks to be one of the Xbox One's premier exclusives it releases later this year. Number 2, Gears of War 4. Gears of War is finally back for a mainline entry. Now being developed by the Coalition, Gears 4 is changing quite a bit, but also keeping the core gameplay elements very similar. Things such as the cover mechanics, active reloads, etc. There will be new gameplay features such as the combat knife, which can be used for melee attacks and allow for new executions. New weapons are being introduced, there's weather that affects combat, and the setting. Gears 4 takes place 25 years after the original trilogy. You play as JD Phoenix, the son of Marcus Phoenix. We've already played the beta, and while not perfect, there's potential in the multiplayer. Hopefully it delivers when it releases later this year.
Throwing smoke! Enemy spotted! Oh, my bad.
Number 1, Scalebound. Scalebound is an action RPG being developed by one of the best developers in the industry today in Platinum Games. Those guys have worked on some great action games such as Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising. In Scalebound, you play as Drew accompanied by a dragon, Thuban. Thuban will assist the player throughout the game, breathing fire, defeating enemies, etc. Drew and Thuban are bonded, so if Thuban dies, Drew dies, and vice versa. Scalebound is an incredibly stylish game, and outside of some frame rate issues in what was just an early demo, the game is shaping up very nicely. It was originally scheduled for a release this year, but it has been pushed back to 2017. Regardless, hopefully it lives up to the hype when it does release. So that wraps up our top 10 upcoming Xbox One console exclusives. What do you think? What games are you the most excited for? Let us know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.